Alrighty, well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. We are going to get started since we've got a lot of ground to cover. So first, I'll pass it over to you, Tamara, if that works, and you can sort of get us going.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tammy Gaskell. I'm the director at the Rojan Library. And this program is brought to you by the 11 libraries in Columbia County, the Columbia County Libraries Association, many of whom are now libraries of local and have seed libraries that a lot of you have probably borrowed seeds from. And I know, and the other libraries, a number of them are interested in joining that program as well. So we decided to present this as a county. I'm very interested to learn a little bit about how to save seeds. We've planted some at our library and I have some at my own house. We hope that some of you will bring your seeds back to your library so that we can share them next year. I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin, who will then get us started, because I think we have a lot to cover today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamara. So my name is Caitlin Doherty, and I am the program coordinator at Dirty Gaia. And we're so thrilled to be here. And thank you all for joining us on this beautiful summer night. And thank you so much for hosting and organizing this event. So this presentation is brought to you by Dirty Gaia. Our organization aims to increase bioregional awareness and ecological literacy through programs such as this. And the organization was founded by Sue C., who will be your main presenter tonight. So Sue wears many hats. She's an architect, she's an environmental advocate, and her real passion is inspiring environmental awareness and action in the Hudson Valley. So she wears many hats. Like I said, she's a Rhinebeck community garden leader. She also co-founded the Morton Seed Library. And most importantly for tonight, she's a lifelong gardener and seed saving enthusiast. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you.
Hello, everybody. It's so great to see all of you here and excited about saving seeds. The next slide is a slide of my biggest project, which is my home garden. And I call it Woodchuck's Paradise because we did have a guest here for a while, until he was escorted to another county. Anyway, I've been saving seeds for about maybe 7 years with the help of workshops with Kay Green of Hudson Valley Seed Company, which you'll be seeing some clips from tonight. Next, I'd like to go over our format for the evening. So this is what we'll be covering tonight. What is a seed? Why save seeds? And then basic seed saving techniques and methodologies and ways to think about planning your garden. And finally, we'll go over storing seeds and seed resources. So, what is a seed?
What is a seed?
What is a seed?
What is a seed?
A seed is the embodiment of potential. It is a collection of DNA and genetics, but it's truly more than that. It is our crop diversity in a little package.
A plant, a future plant.
The basis of our food system, the basis of everything that we wear, the potential health of our air.
The embodiment of 10,000 years of the human relationship to the plants that we eat.
Part of the cycle of the plant that encases its genetic history and it grows.
The origin of life as far as vegetables are concerned.
To me is something that starts and grows a plant, which contributes to the larger ecosystem.
seed is called Ghana in our language. It means life emanates from what we put in the soil.
A seed to me is the foundation of life and of culture.
Foundation of life, it's the foundation of culture.
A being that allows us to continue to keep on living. Stopping and pausing and reminding ourselves that a seed is alive really is the basis for a healthy relationship with seeds.
My favorite look at a seed is as a cultural story. In this slide here, we see our Samatero pole beans, which were brought to us by Paul and Ellen Siebel. This seed has a real story, and I was so excited to discover it. Paul's grandfather, Francesco, first emigrated to the United States in 1920 from Tusa, which is a small town in the northern coast of Italy. And in 1960, he went back to visit his remaining relatives in Sicily and returned by ship with a handful of the Samatero heirloom beans to grow in the US. The next generations were handed some of the seeds, including Anna Maria, who then passed them on to her son, Paul. Paul believes that this is a wonderful way to honor the memory of his mother and provide continuity to this story. As many heirloom seeds as there are stories about those seeds. Another way to look at seeds is as, in a scientific way, as a reproductive strategy, a flowering plant's unit of reproduction capable of developing into another such plant. And finally, in the next slide, it shows that the seed is a living being. And this is an interesting thing to consider because you have to take care of a seed. It's alive, even though it's dormant and it doesn't appear very animate. There is life in there, and we have to take care of it as such. So it has certain conditions for life, humidity levels, temperature, darkness, or light. So in that way, it's good to not forget that a seed is alive. So I'm going to open up for any questions at this point, or any sharing, and you can share what are some of the seeds that you know about that are around you in day-to-day life.
I have a question.
Yes.
I am very confused about pollination. Pollination and saving seeds that are open pollen. I don't understand the whole open pollinated, which is probably a whole other.
We will go over that in this session. So that will be covered. So why save seeds? One of the things for me in saving seeds is really slowing down. When you save seeds, you have to take the time to pick them at the right time. You have to be present when you're threshing them and removing them from their husk or shell. And it's a great way to community build through threshing events like the one you see in this picture at the Morton Library. And distribute the seeds amongst the community is very satisfying. As far as resilience, I don't know if any of you were trying to order seeds during the pandemic, but it's a perfect example of why you might want to save your own seeds. During the pandemic, I was shocked because the companies that I usually purchase seeds from were back ordered, out of stock, and so forth. So that was a good example of one reason to save seeds. Resilience and economy. So a pack of seeds is $3 to $4 now. So you could save quite a bit of money if you grow a lot of varieties. Next, we have our diversity slide. And this shows you the situation in the world of the direction in which our varieties are going. So you can see that a century ago, and this was provided by National Geographic in 2018, that we had, let's take corn for instance, 307 varieties of corn, and today we have 12. So there's a huge loss of seed diversity in so many different vegetables in the world. And once those varieties are lost, they're lost forever. So that's another reason to save seed. One organization, the Seed Savers Exchange, actually promotes seed saving, and they're a great website to find out more about why it's so important to increase diversity. Okay, so our next slide is seed saving is for the birds. So I do save seeds just by leaving them on the plants sometimes for the insects to pollinate and providing forage and nectar for them, as well as to feed the birds in the winter. So my sunflowers and echinacea are favorites with the bird world. So which seeds are best to save? So we have different types of seeds that we call seed stories, and this is what Nina was referring to. And in the next slide, I'd like to put a test out there. So if people could type in the chat, which seed do they think is an heirloom seed? Which seed is a genetically engineered or a GMO seed? Which plant is a hybrid, and which one is open pollinated? We can see what the impressions are here. I see that Nina says corn is GMO. Heirloom is the kale. Elizabeth. Heirloom is spinach by Donald. Another GMO corn. And zucchini is the hybrid. I guess corn wins for GMO, doesn't it? Heirloom tomato, and Donald says tomato is a hybrid. Great. So the purpose of this little exercise was to show that you cannot tell from looking at a vegetable whether it is heirloom, hybrid, open pollinated, or GMO. Those are all things that need to be found through other sources like catalogs or records of the seed. So in this slide, the tomatoes are Sun Gold cherry tomatoes from Johnny's seed, which are hybrid. So a hybrid seed is one that is the first generation of seeds of a cross produced by combining two or more varieties or species. So these two form this hybrid, and the hybrid cannot be saved and grown again as the same thing. It will revert to one of its two or more parents. So it does not provide what's called true to type plants that will be the same as the plants that you grew out. In other words, it's not genetically stable. In most cases, catalogs will indicate F1 varieties and other F varieties, which are hybrids. The next plant is the corn, and that is GMO, or that was to be GMO in our example. So genetically engineered seeds are engineered for certain traits such as disease or pest resistance, herbicide resistance. The thing to keep in mind about them, not that you have to, because I don't think they're really accessible by home gardeners, but that GM seed is patented and sold under exclusive rights. Therefore, farmers must purchase GM seeds new each year, because saving seeds is considered to be patent infringement. Anyone who does save GM seeds must pay a license fee to actually resow them. So that is looking at seeds as more of a commodity and not something that we really need to be concerned with because we don't have them to buy from. The zucchini is a Black Beauty zucchini from the Hudson Valley Seed Company, and it is open pollinated. So open pollinated is, it cross pollinates only with other members of the same population and produces offspring that are true to type or display the typical characteristics of that variety. Lastly, the heirloom is the abundant Bloomsdale spinach from the Hudson Valley Seed Company. And the difference between, it's the same as an open pollinated variety, which it will keep growing year after year as the same, with the same qualities and traits. But it has been handed down from generation to generation and has a history. So all heirloom seeds are open pollinated, but not all open pollinated seeds are heirlooms because they might not have records or have been around as long. So the next slide. These are some common words that you should know as a seed saver that you'll come across. So germination simply means the emergence of a young plant from a seed. So you'll see germination rate referred to. So if there's a 80% germination rate on your seed packet, that means 80% of the seeds are likely to produce plants. Isolation distance is the separation of one plant or group of plants from another to prevent cross-pollination. So in this case, it's very important to know the plant's specific name, which is the genus and the species, or the scientific name. Because, for instance, squash have three different types of squash and many varieties within each. So the varieties within each type of squash can cross-pollinate, but the different types, the larger types of squash cannot. So it's something that is good to know when you are saving seeds. Let's see. Regionally adapted plants are cultivated and grown in the same region as we are and are better adapted to our soil, weather, temperature, and other conditions in this area. Plant spacing is the distance between plants in a row. And why this is important is because when you grow something strictly for seeds, I'll give you the example of lettuce. When you grow lettuce, usually it's about, I don't know, 6 inches apart, maybe a little more. But when you grow lettuce to grow out to seed, the lettuce plant is huge. It's like 3.5 to 4 feet high. It has these giant pappus, dandelion-like umbels. And so the spacing is much larger. So you have to plant them 18 inches apart. So that's why plant spacing in growing for seed is important. And that's just for some species. Some species grow like beans and squash. You can use the same exact spacing as you would for growing them for food. Okay, so here Nina is self-pollinated. So the self-pollination means the plant pollinates itself. So it transfers its own pollen from one anther to the stigma of the same plant. And this is good to know for seed savers because one of the things you want to prevent is cross-pollination with other varieties. So self-pollinated are great as an easy beginner type of seed to grow out. Some self-pollinated plants are tomatoes, beans, peppers. And next we have cross-pollination. And that is the transfer of pollen from one plant into another plant. So if I had a special bean like, a provider bush bean and another bush bean, and I wanted them to grow out true to type, I would not put them close together because they would cross-pollinate. So that would be the isolation distance that's given in a chart that I'll show next. Annual, biennial, perennial, these terms refer to the number of growing seasons for the plant to complete its full cycle. So in our case, to go to seed. Annuals are 1 year, biennials seed in the second year, and perennials come year after year, usually. So next we have the seed saving slide. So this is provided by Seed Savers Exchange. It's a great guide, and it goes over, it gives you information for different plants and their recommended distance for seed saving, to plant apart from another variety. I won't go into population size at this point, but it also tells you if it's an annual or if you'll have to wait next year to collect seeds. And it will tell you the species and scientific name of the plants. Okay, so next slide, please. So in conclusion, because hybrids will revert to one of its 2 or more crossed varieties, they're generally not good to save unless you like surprises. So if you want to grow out true to type seeds, I recommend you start with self-pollinated and heirloom seeds, and such as tomatoes, peppers, beans, as well as seeds that are easy to see, because some seeds are very tiny and hard to thresh and get out, like the lettuce seed. Okay, next we have some seed sources. Of course, there's your library of local, and those are all open pollinated varieties, if not heirlooms. And some regional seed companies are Fruition Seed, Hudson Valley Seed Company, and Turtle Tree Seeds up near Copake. Okay, next slide, please. Another source for seeds is seed swaps. If you haven't been to a seed swap, you ought to, because there's so much fun, there's so much excitement going on. And they're a great place to find interesting seeds that people have been saving. At one point, I got some green cotton seeds from somebody, but I didn't really know how to grow it or what I would do with it, but it was fun to possess those seeds. So the thing to remember when you are getting seeds from other seed growers that are not professional is to get as much information as you can about the seed. So you know the name of the scientific name, where it was grown, the date it was grown, because seeds do deteriorate over time, depending on the type of seed. So on the next slide, there are a good thing to do when you're getting seeds from a seed swap, and you're not quite sure about the viability or the potential of the seeds, is to do some germination testing. So I'm going to just go over to my other station. And the left is peas that I did germination test for a couple of days ago. And the right is a system I developed with a seed sprouter, which works well for germination tests as well. So I'm going to just show you what those look like now. Okay. So this is the radishes. So you can see they did pretty good germinating, and these radishes are from 2019. So you can see that radish seeds work, live pretty long and are pretty strong growers. Then we have some snap peas. This is a different kind of germinating stuff. We put it in moistened paper towel, not too wet. So this was August 26th, and these are the peas. So you can see that they're pretty much all germinated. I can attempt to plant these, and I will, but it's always going to look different because not in the ground. They're very delicate. So that is the germination test. Do we have a question? Any questions in the audience?
I do have a few.
Let's do that.
Vicky asked, how long can seeds be held in moisture?
Okay, Vicky. So Vicky asks, how long are seeds, can they be held? Which I take to mean, how long do they last and are alive? So that really depends on the type of seed. Some seeds have a very short shelf life, as it were, like onions and carrots. They don't last very long. I wouldn't save them over a year. But other ones, like the radishes, I just planted lettuce seeds from 2016. Some have a very long life. Corn is 7 years or so, and beans are pretty long as well. They lose a little bit of vigor over time, but the smaller seeds, perform, greatly, like the kale. So on the Seed Savers Exchange website, they do give that information for each variety of vegetable.
And Stephen asks, how do you keep invasives from seeding? He has a plant that he doesn't want to seed.
Well, Stephen, invasives are another issue altogether. So I like to use occultation or cardboard, to cover areas that you don't want to have invasives in. So it really depends on what you're using that land for. There's scuffle hoeing, if it's an annual invasive that is just going to, that you can just easily kind of scrape off the surface. So that's pretty much my answer to that.
And then Nina asks, can F1 seeds from supermarket tomatoes be saved?
They can be saved, but you won't know. They are a hybrid. So again, you will not know what will come of that seed once you plant it. It could go back to a tomato that was just grown for disease resistance, but has terrible flavor, or some other quality that was trying to be bred. So
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys ever had the sugar bombs or the honey bomb tomatoes from the supermarket. They're grown by Sunset, I believe.
I don't know that brand.
They are so sweet, but I took the seeds at the beginning. Actually, I just cut one of the seeds and I put it in the ground, and I got a tomato plant, and I just picked these, and I took them off the vine because I have woodchucks. But I'm very interested to see how this is going to taste.
Well, yes, we are too. Why don't you taste it right now?
Well, no, because it's not ripe. It's not ripe yet. I took it, it's a little bit ripe, but I took it off because I have woodchucks eating all my tomatoes.
Oh, this is so frustrating.
So I'm putting them by my window, and
it's good to play. You don't have to really.
Yeah, everything.
I knew a seed keeper who loves variety, and he would just grow anything next to anything else and see what happens. So if you have the space and the patience, and you're willing to see, results that you wouldn't be sure of, it's fine to try it.
So my other question about this is, so you said it's going to be a hybrid?
It is a hybrid. So a hybrid is two other varieties crossed together, and it could look like this variety, or it could be two or more varieties.
How do you know this is, by looking at this and the information I gave you that I bought it from the supermarket, how do you know that it's a hybrid?
Oh, I thought you said it was an F1.
Oh, F1, yes. Does that automatically mean it's?
Yeah, that means the first generation born after a hybrid crossing.
Okay, so if I take the seed from this for next year, what would that be considered?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't know. I mean, what would it be? It would just be F2.
Will I still get the same, will this be the same, taste the same and have the same qualities of what I bought from the supermarket?
No, I mean, you can't be sure because it's a hybrid. That's the thing about growing out hybrids, is that it's not genetically stable. It could revert back to another crossing or another variety.
Okay, it'll be interesting.
Yes, you're welcome.
And then one more, Carol asks, in general, what kind of container should seeds be stored in and at what temperature?
In general, seeds should be stored at, and we will go over this a little bit later. I store mine mostly in glass jars and in a dark room. The important thing is to have a constant and consistent temperature. And there are rules of thumbs that I'll go explain later when we get to that section. Good question though. So now we're going to talk about some basic seed saving techniques. Our first is the passive technique, which I already spoke about, where in the next slide you'll see some of the varieties that grow in my garden. Let's see. So we have wild rustic arugula, I have amaranth all over, and I have ground cherries. And I just let them grow where I want them. And I weed all of their other seedlings out, or, just pull them because they like to grow here. So it is a nice way to have a kind of random garden, or add some randomness to a garden, but also to have all this. I have kale all the time without growing it because I let it go to seed. So that's my passive seed saving method. Next is the mechanical threshing. So this is kind of next level seed threshing, where you might want to thresh a lot of difficult to thresh seeds, like lettuce seeds in our case. This was a demonstration at the Morton Library. And basically it's a box with baffles connected to a source of air or wind. And the seed chaff, or the organic matter that is not the seed, gets blown off of the seed, and the seed gets cleaned in that way. So this is if you have a lot of seeds and a lot of difficult seeds to thresh. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we're going to do some wet threshing with tomatoes. And generally, I wanted to say threshing means to remove the other organic matter, like the twigs, the pods, and other stuff from the seed itself. So it's a cleaning process for the seeds. And wet threshing applies to vegetables that you collect the seeds from when they're still wet, and usually inside a fruit, like tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and squash. Dry threshing refers to seeds that are collected and they could be already dried on the plant, or you could bundle them and hang them to dry in a dark, cool place with good circulation, depending on the plant, of course. So we're going to move on to a demo of wet threshing tomatoes. I'll start with a live demo, and then I'll have a video of what happens after a few days of the fermentation. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the demo area. Okay, so we have a butcher block, sharp knife, and it's a native. This is the summer sunrise tomato, which is available at the library. It's very beautiful and sweet. So you generally want to pick a tomato when it is fully ripe. In general, that is true for most of these wet threshed, for most seeds in general, because that's the seed maturity. So we're going to cut it this way because you'll recall tomatoes are compartmentalized in segments here. So if you cut it this way, you still have all these compartments that you have to get the seeds out of. So that's why we cut it this way. Okay, so there we have all the little compartments of seeds. Now I'm going to just squeeze that into a bowl. So you can see the jelly around the seeds. So the reason why we ferment these is because the jelly around the seeds is a germination inhibitor. So it stops the seeds from sprouting inside of the tomato. The same thing is true of cucumber seeds. So what fermentation does is it breaks down that coating and leaves a nice green seed for safety. You just want to get most of the pulp out. And you can, if you want, save this for sauce or some other use. It's totally edible. Okay, so you can see I've got some good seed stuff going in there. Okay, so now I'm going to pour this into a jar. Oh, no. And I'm going to about double the volume with some water. And I'm going to use filtered water just because it's not chlorinated. Okay, so now we have this jar of tomato seeds jelly, and we're going to definitely, it's the most important thing, is label it. Because all tomato varieties, the seeds look the same, so I want to make sure you make a label with the common name at least, and the date that you're starting these germination. So then we're going to get it. I like to use a paper towel so that when it's fermenting, no insects or other things fly into it. And it's important that it has air circulation. So you're kind of protecting it, but allowing air to circulate so that mold can form. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to show you a video of what this looks like when we close the layer of mold.
Here is a jar of tomato seeds that I processed on August 21st of San Marzano plum tomatoes. There's quite a few tomatoes. You can see that some of these are floating at the top. Those seeds are not viable or capable of growing into plants. So we're gonna just pour those off at the beginning and strain the rest of them. I've just put a piece of paper towel on the top so that air can still get through, but it will keep bugs and other things out of the jar. And I'm going to pour off the top bit of the tomato right now. And now I'm going to rinse the seeds. This is just a strainer that I got from the dollar store. And here you have the seeds. This is from about a bushel of tomatoes, so you might not get this many, but you can tell there are a lot of seeds in there. Okay, now I'm going to put them on an old window screen that I have here and spread them out so that they can dry. If you had just a few seeds, say from one tomato, you could probably use this sieve to dry them out on, but I'd like to give them lots of room so they can fully dry quickly. So here we have them. I'm going to let them dry. You want to let them dry in a dry room with some air circulation if possible. And once they're dry, then you can put them in a jar and save them for growing next year.
So this was the tomatoes, spread those in the stream. And pretty dry now. What I like to do is There's some little clumps, you can declump them with your fingers and put them in a jar. So this is quite a bit of seeds. This is a bushel of San Marzano plum tomatoes. And I saved the desiccant packet from food and supplements and things like that. So that helps keep it dry. So at this point, you're going to label the tomatoes, what variety and the date that you collected them. So that's tomato season. Oh, and then I guess I'll just do a little bit of peppers. Okay, so peppers are very easy. Get rid of our tomato. This is a mega marconi pepper. And I saved it, you know, it's hard to save a pepper until it's ready. Somebody's gonna get it. Or it takes someone. And of course, you did get it. So you're gonna cut off the top. We'll see that there's that little a little clump of the seeds here. So these are generally pretty easy to extract. You can see that these are a little brown and they're small and brown. I think that hole might have influenced the seeds. They should all be, you know, the lighter color seeds. So I would get rid of the little brown ones, but you can do that also with water by floating the seeds in water, and the ones that drop to the bottom are heavy seeds, and the lighter ones will float to the top. So it's another way to get rid of the bad, the non-germinating seeds.
It's a little hard to hear.
Oh, sorry. So these are the pepper seeds. I'm going to put them on a sieve and dry them out, or a screen. I could do the water test. And it's which ones float and which ones stay on the bottom. You can see some floating. So I'd let it go a little bit and just collect the ones that are on the bottom. Okay.
Someone's asking if seeds can be dried on paper towels.
Oh, you know, I don't recommend drying on paper towels because seeds, as they dry, will start to stick to the paper towels, and that will be a mess to extract. So what I've generally seen is coffee filters and window screens as a substrate to dry them on. Okay, a cucumber. This cucumber is not quite ready. It should be all yellow, but we thought this was the best we could do for our demonstration. So you want to see a giant yellow cucumber. So cucumbers are not harvested when they're ready to eat, as the peppers and tomatoes were. Cucumbers you want to let go way, way older than you would ever want to eat them. So they're bloated and yellow. And at that point, we would just cut it diagonally now. And scoop out the seeds here with a spoon. As you can see, these look a little immature. It's not quite ready. But again, you would scoop these out, put them in a jar, like the tomatoes, and ferment them until they have a coating of mold on top. Then do it once more. You shake it up, let another layer of mold through, and that will get the jelly-like substance off of the seeds and clean them. And then dry them out on screens or coffee filters as well.
How long to dry and at what temperature?
The question was how long to dry and at what temperature. You want to generally keep seeds in a dark place. Some seeds like to germinate in light. Like room temperature is fine. These tomato seeds were on the screen for maybe 2-3 days. So, you know, it really depends on the humidity of your location. you want it to be a dry location. Any other questions?
What about stratification?
Stratification is particular to the plant. So for instance, and to explain stratification, it means to give your seeds a period of cold to kind of represent winter or natural growing conditions. Some plants require this for the seeds to germinate, such as butterfly weed, milkweed, and other wildflowers. But most of what we're working with here does not need stratification. Okay, so I'd like to go into dry threshing. We had a video of Kay Green doing dry threshing. Dry threshing is a very messy process, which involves using fans to blow air over seeds which are being poured in front of a fan. So that's why I chose to use a video for that process.
And the important thing to think about with dry seeded crops is that instead of thinking about interrupting the plant at its tastiest moment, which is what we do when we're harvesting for food, we're interrupting it at the point where the seeds are ripe and mature, but before the plant has decided to let go of the seeds itself. Once seeds have fallen and hit the ground, your viability is going to go down, they might start germinating, they can pick up diseases. So we're trying to get them when they're still attached to the plant, but we also want them to be on the plant as long as possible. This is called shattering. And so this is what the plant would be doing if the wind hit it and the plant is knocking into, other stalks of the same plant, or an animal is brushing up against it. All of these different mechanisms that get the plant to release seeds. So that's the threshing part with something like amaranth. What's happening here is we have seeds and we have chaff. Great way to thresh something where you're still trying to separate it out. It's pretty simple. And you'll see, if you want to take a handful and try that, you'll see now that you're also starting to worm, that you're starting to see little black seeds in there that are being separated from the chaff. So this is the smallest size screen that the soil sieve comes with. And so the next step for something like this is the screening process, which is going to help us get out a little bit more of chaff. So you can see already a bunch of the stems are left on top. And so that's sort of the next level of cleaning. Sometimes when you're using the screens, you're thinking about the chaff staying on top and the seeds falling through. Other times, when the seed is a larger seed and it's very dusty, you're thinking about the chaff falling through and the seed staying on top. And so you're choosing your screen size based on that. We're starting to get there. And you see all the black in there? So the final step for this would be the winnowing. We were talking about wind. And so winnowing, probably some of you can picture like a Renaissance painting of someone with a big, like a shallow basket, throwing wheat up into the air, and then it falls back down into the basket. That's a winnowing process. Basically what that's doing is throwing everything up into the air. The light material, in this case, with a light breeze, is going to blow away, and the heavy material, which is the mature seed, is going to fall back into the basket. The challenge with that kind of winnowing is that it's like a Murphy's Law kind of thing, where it's like either there's too much wind or there's not enough wind. So having a shallow bowl and lightly blowing on it, which I could do in this bowl, and I could probably clean a good 50% of this out just by lightly blowing on it. So that, and while I kind of go like this and be blowing lightly on it, and that way I can control, how heavy I'm blowing and how close it is to my face. When we're doing a lot of seeds, we use a fan, which and you're pouring the seeds in front of the fan. And again, you can decide how close or far away. You can play with the fan speed. And you have a series of buckets in front. And the heaviest material will fall in the first bucket, lighter material will fall in the second bucket, and the lightest material will fall away. And so you kind of have your heavy and light, and you can re-clean the light if you want to.
So I'm going to start with some coriander seeds. This is a soil sifter. So it generally comes with two size openings, and this is, I believe, the smaller opening. And you can get this at garden supply stores, and I think Hudson Valley Seed Company does sell them. But it makes a great sifter for some sized seeds. So I have collected this dill heads from my garden this year. What I generally like to do is let them dry on the umbel, this is called an until this stalk that holds the little arrangement of seed heads is dry. So this will dry the last this stem here. So I let that dry, and then I just cut them from the stalk. So basically, I just try to so how is my sound mark? And there also is the slow method of seed extraction. And that method, and I can show you this, I've got some seeds here now. In the slow method, you're sitting around a table, drinking wine with friends. You can simply use your fingers to rub the seeds off the stalk. It's kind of more satisfying, but of course, take it home. So you can see that you can get a lot of seeds this way. The next step, because you have all of these twigs and other matter, would be to use a fan and to toss these into a bucket on the floor and toss them in front of the fan. And you have to figure out a little bit, how far away from the fan you need to be to get an accurate aim into the bucket of the good seeds. So does that make sense to everyone? The next thing I wanted to show you was beans. Still out here. So this is provider whole beans. Oh no, this is Kentucky Wonder. Of course I didn't. So provider bush, right? A whole. It was a whole. Oh, providers of bush. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So what we're gonna do, what we do if we have a lot of beans, these are harvested when they are dry on the vine or the bush. So you really want to let them get very dry. You don't want to have to see any green on them. So this was from last year, which was a very wet year. So I'm not sure, you can see there's mold on the outside of the bean. That's not necessarily a good thing. So I definitely would do a germination test to see how viable these are. But you can see they come very easily out of the dry pot. But for larger scale extraction of the seed, we put this into something like this trug, and you would stomp them with your feet on the ground like grapes. And then that would extract the beans, and then you would use some wind, or I've used a blow dryer under. So I put what remains is something like this, which is a screen that is for seed saving, but not really necessary. So you put the beans on top of that that you've stepped on and presumably loosened up, and put a blow dryer underneath, and would just all like chaff would fly away. But you could also try the bucket on the floor with the fan. So that is dry. Anything else? I just wanted to show you this. These are some seeds from the Morton Seed Library. This is our arugula seed, which we collected quite a lot of. And that's it. Let's see.
Mina asks, what is that wood screen called?
That is a wood screen. It's a screen from Strictly Medicinal, and it is a seed screen. Okay, so now we were going to talk about seed storing, and so seed storing. You want to, once you get your seeds, you know, I like to put that desiccant in it, packet. You want to store them in a dry, dark, constant temperature place. And there is a rule of thumb that the sum of the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit and relative humidity and percentage should be less than 100 when added up for good seed storage conditions. So that will give you an idea of, you know, if you're storing it at 65 degrees and 45% relative humidity, that would be a little over 100. So you want to get one of those numbers down. Okay, so seed resources slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, so these are some really, really good resources to have if you'd like to delve more thoroughly into seed saving. Susan Ashworth's Seed to Seed, which I don't think is published any longer, but it is sold used at like Abe Books and other places. And then a more recent one is The Seed Garden by Butala and Siegel. And these will give you all of the information about what varieties are, you know, within the cucumber family or the squash family and the beans, and which ones you have to keep separate, and it will go through each vegetable. The Hudson Valley Seed.com online has your Ultimate Seed Saving Compendium, which is a very good resource. Seed Savers, again, is a great resource that they have how to grow vegetables for seeds, and all of the terminology. Fruition Seeds has Saving Our Seeds, Saving Ourselves, Seed Keeping Course. And of course, you can always email us at hello@dirtygaia.org if you have questions about this presentation or in your seed discovery, seed saving discovery phase. So thank you very much. Are there more questions? Oh, this is a beautiful proverb that I love. Let's see. Nothing in the chat?
I can say one thing, Sue, that in addition to flowers, I've also saved herb seeds from year to year. And I have never used a screen. So for people who are starting and they don't want to invest initially in a screen, you could use your hands.
Oh, I know. Yes, I totally agree. You don't have to buy any special gadgets.
Right. To separate the debris when the seeds are, it's very dry, it all comes apart very quickly. And one bean that I recommend that's really beautiful in a garden, especially in an herb garden, is the scarlet runner bean.
I love them. Yes.
Right. And they hold up very well from year to year.
Yes, definitely. Nina wants to know about flower seed saving. Of course, there are so many different flowers, and each one has a different type of seed gathering. Like marigolds are so different than sunflowers because of the structure, the morphology of the seeds. So each one is very specific as far as, but the principles are the same. You want to store them in a cool, dry, in the same conditions. You want to do germination tests when you're not sure about where they're coming from.
This is saying, how difficult is it for a beginner as far as the result being? Like, how different is it saving seeds and buying seeds in terms of, I guess, outcomes?
Yes, thank you, Vicki. And the question is, how different is it to save your own seeds than buying those seeds?
Yeah,
and
you have is good enough.
It really depends on how what your gardening skills and feeding your soil, making sure you have good conditions for the plant to grow. You know, for instance, when we grew radish seeds for the Morton Seed Library, we noticed that our seeds were so much bigger than the seeds that came in packets because our plants were so healthy and robust. You know, those plants had 7 volunteers looking after them every day. So they were very well cared for. So it really depends on how it's grown and if you let it have its full space. Like in the seed garden book, it will tell you if you're growing lettuce for seed, you know, you need 18 inches between plants, which you would not normally do. But you can see that it grows into its full, you know, being when it's given that much space. So if you let lettuce go to seed in a closer spacing, you won't have that. The seeds won't be as good.
Nina's asking in terms of flower seeds, should you just leave them on the plant until the flowers dry up?
Yes, I usually do. I save Tithonia seeds and what is it, the agastache, and yes, I let them cosmos, marigolds, and I let them dry on the plant because then you're sure that they've come to maturity.
But if I want to, you know, if you do want to save them in a container for the next year and control where you put them, like if you want to put them in another place, they save really easily as long as you observe the same rules that the seed be very dry, yeah, and kept in a proper storage container. And that's how I can give away seeds every year, is because I know which plants are really reliable, and you can make yourself a tremendous garden in a very short time.
Yes,
doing this.
No, that's a great point, and that's true. As long as that you keep them dry and dark. Yes. All right. So I think that's good. Any more questions, Martha? Thank you all for coming. I'm so glad that you did. I hope this was useful for you. And you can subscribe to we have a dirtygaia.org. You can get our updates on what we're up to and programs that we are providing. So thank you all, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have recorded this, so I will, once we have the link, I will send that out to everybody.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm wondering if Carol can tell us what Kieran Schoma is.
Yes, good question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. All the seeds I've ever worked with have been flower seeds. So Kieran Schoma are a Japanese plant called yellow waxwing. So my question in working with some of these plants, which were pretty much unknown to me until I saw them in a nursery. I would always be challenged by identifying the seed and the readiness of the seed. I had an interesting experience with phlox, which was growing in my garden, and I had some white and pink, and I decided I didn't want any pink. I just wanted white. And so I saved the seed for the white and I planted them. And I was thinking that perhaps the pink was the natural plant because so many of the plants came out to be pink. So this has been sometimes confounding. And of course, you talked about it. I also had the same experience with cleomes, which all of these seeds I give to people every year. And I always tell them that the color that I've labeled isn't, sure. That I may think of giving them white, but the plant somehow reverts to pink. So how would I find out about this, about these plants?
About the flock and the flowers?
Yeah, what the natural plant is. I mean, some of my plants I've gotten in the wild. I've just dug them up.
Yeah, I think you would have to do a little digging into native wildflower books. That's not something really that I know about.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a wonderful endeavor.
Well, it's been very gratifying through the years, and it's wonderful to go to other people's gardens and see what they've done with the seeds that I've given them.
Thank you.
But also, I must say that I do sometimes worry that maybe the seeds that I've given won't be viable for a reason that I don't know.
Well, that's another reason to do a germination test. So you can try, depending on the species, if they need to undergo cold, or if, you have to look up what conditions cause the seed to germinate. Some need light to germinate, some need darkness, some need a certain temperature. So you'll have to do a little digging into the cultivation of that species and try a germination test.
Right. Yeah, that would be another step, right?